You're listening to Better Live Than Dead.
How is it going, everybody? 12, Ryan Wolf, Brayton Wilson here. I am Ryan Wolf, and the man on the line is Brayton Wilson. That's a different way to bring. It's a different way to bring the podcast in, Brayton. But hey, we're here. We're live.
Yeah, I know.
I'm still kind of tired. I only woke up like 15, 20 minutes ago. So it's always good. Wake up and immediately get on a podcast and record everything that I'm saying. It's always a very smart idea. Very smart idea.
Better believe it. It's a great idea. It's always a great idea.
You can follow me at Wolf BLTD on Twitter. You can follow Brayton at BJ Wilson WGR on Twitter as well. You can also check out BLTDsports.com, at BLTD Sports on Twitter, Facebook.com/BLTD podcast, and obviously BLTDsports.com, which leads me to my first point of the day. Just going up this morning on Sunday the 24th. Brayton, your top 30 winter rankings of the for the upcoming NHL draft. Well, not the upcoming. I mean the NHL draft in June, but it's, I guess you could say it's upcoming. Mm-hmm. But either way, tell us more about these draft rankings that you have posted today.
It took me probably about 3 weeks to get this done. I started right after, however long it took after the tournament ended in Finland with the World Junior Championships. And it took me that long to get it done, and I'm just happy that it's done because it's a process. I try to write out things about each prospect, try to, be hockey smart about this stuff. And sometimes you kind of just like, once you get to like the 20s, you just are just like, oh God, I've done 20 of these prospects already. What more can I say? So
yeah, dude, that's the one thing. That's the one thing That's the one thing I give you credit about is that I see this go up in like November, and I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. And then I just see it change and change and change and change and change. And even when you get it done, you go back and you change it again, you change it again. So I give you a lot of credit for this. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and the fact is like, I had my rankings, and literally yesterday I was just changing my player rankings. I moved a couple people up, moved a couple people down. It's always a changing process for me, as you said. And yeah, when you go onto the page, there's some good videos about some of the prospects. Some people have just compiled a bunch of highlights and stuff from whether it's the Ontario Hockey League, the Quebec Major Juniors, or from the World Junior Championships. Some really good stuff, and you can see the top three picks with Matthews, Puglia, Yarvi, and Laine, with all three of them. With their highlights from the tournament, and all three of them had a really, really good tournament this year.
Now, the question I want to ask you, for those fans out there who do not follow the lead up to the draft as much as you do, Brayton, what are a couple names? Obviously, Austin Matthews, but what are a few names aside from Austin Matthews that the Buffalo Sabres fans may want to start keeping an eye on? I think we lost Brayton. I think my question was so good that he is spontaneously combusted. Yeah, Brayton has fallen off of the air. So what we will do. Okay, Brayton is back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about that. I'm using the internet off my phone to do this, and my grandparents decided to call me. So,
grandparents, what are you doing? Leave me alone.
Yeah, I figure I'll call them back later.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be too long here. I might leave that in there. We just got rickrolled here on the podcast. Never a dull moment.
Apologize.
Okay, so it's okay. It's okay. So what I was saying, and I'll ask you this question again, Brayton. It's with the draft. I mean, we're going to start hearing more about the draft as the season is growing older. I mean, the All-Star break is coming up soon. We've got the trade deadline in a few weeks, which we'll talk about in a little while if you want a little bit of a teaser. But obviously with the Buffalo Sabres being lower in the standings, better chance of having a higher pick. Now, we all know about Austin Matthews. We've heard that ad nauseum. We know the kid's going to be a fantastic hockey player. But what are a few other names that Buffalo Sabres fans should start keeping an eye out for and paying attention to in the next couple of weeks?
Well, if you look at the standings right now, Buffalo is currently in sole possession of 29th place. They're 3 points ahead of Columbus for last, and they're 1 point behind Toronto for 28th place. Now, that would be where they would end up if the season ended, of course, today, but there's still no way of telling where Buffalo is really going to end up come April 9th when the season officially ends. And with maybe the trade deadline coming, they're going to trade away some pieces, and that would, force some AHL guys to get caught up. And not to say that the Sabres are going to necessarily tank, but with the way that I see things ending up, I see Buffalo ending anywhere in the season between last place, because there's still a serious consideration that they could finish last place, and then probably somewhere around pick number 20 or pick number 5, 4, 3, anywhere in that range. So one to 5, that's where I'm guessing Buffalo will pick. And then when the draft lottery comes up, they could pick anywhere between 1 and 8. So
now I know
Excuse me. Sorry. Go ahead.
You can finish.
Oh, no. I'm interested to hear what you had to say.
I was going to take it a different route. I was going to say, so if I know it's early, I know it's January. It's January 24th, like we said. But at this point, with how the Buffalo Sabres have played recently, in terms, defense hasn't been horrible, but the offense has been atrocious. Do you think the Sabres are going to go with another talented forward and then try to acquire help defensively, or do you think that they will probably end up going defense or with a defenseman high?
Oh boy, sorry about that. That's my dog going nuts.
You're just having you're having a day over there right now.
I know, it's very eventful over here. But with the draft, I think that it depends. I think if Buffalo is selecting in the top 4, I think they go forward. I think that they'll take either Matthews, Laine, Puljujärvi, or Matthew Tkachuk, the son of Keith Tkachuk. But if they're outside of the top 4, they're gonna have a guy that's being compared to Aaron Ekblad when he came out in the draft, and that's Jacob Chychrun. And I think that if Buffalo ends up picking 5th or anything like that, I think that they should go Chychrun or defense. And the other defenseman I see going that high would be Olli Juolevi, who plays with the London Knights in the Ontario Hockey League, played with Finland at the World Juniors, won gold there. Really good skating defenseman. He moves the puck very well. He's like a quarterback on the power play. He's basically the second coming of Olli Mata in London when, Mata was very good with the Knights when he was playing in the OHL in his draft year. He's having a good year. He's got, 34 points this season. And I think that Juolevi would be a nice addition. But, after the top 4, you look at some of the depth of the prospects. You could go another winger. You could go a guy like Alex Nylander if he's available. He's a very smart, very, very smart forward. He's the brother of William Nylander and the son of Michael Nylander. Another guy that might be of value would be someone like Julien Gauthier, who's a right winger from Val d'Or in the Quebec Major Juniors. Big kid. He's a goal scorer. He scored 33 goals in 35 games this year. You could go Kiefer Bellows in the U.S. Development League. He's a goal scorer. Basically, what you got to do is either you look for a defenseman that you compare, a left-handed shot defenseman you can pair with Rasmus Ristolainen for many years to come, or a winger to pair with Jack Eichel for many years to come.
That sounds fair. And I got to tell you what, too. I got to say, I just got to put this out there. This year's draft, it seems more likely this year to have a fantastic name. It seems like a very elite name draft with all these crazy names that we're getting in this draft. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
Well, last year's draft.
That's what I look for. I just look for.
Yeah, last year's draft was supposed to be one of the deepest drafts in NHL history. Not 2003 deep, because 2003 was a crazy deep draft, as we've talked about in the redraft podcast that we did. last year was supposed to be deep, but now this year, after saying, there's some good talent in this year's draft, but it's not as deep, many of people are starting to say, okay, with the way these prospects are beginning to develop, this draft could be just as deep as last year's draft. Now, again, not quite to the extent of 2003's draft, but it could be just as deep as last year's draft. And that's saying something because last year's draft had some really good talent.
Yeah, the cool thing about it, too, is that the Buffalo Sabres picked the right time to be bad because you get very talented players. I mean, if the pool already itself is really talented, you're getting super talented players at the top of the pool. I mean, yeah, guys that get drafted lower in the first round may play, 700, 800, 900 NHL games, but you're getting fantastic talent at the top. At least that's what I think. I mean, I'm pretty happy that the Buffalo Sabres are bad in the Jack Eichel and the Austin Matthews drafts. I mean, it played out very well.
But really, what did you expect out of this season from the Buffalo Sabres? I mean, you wanted them to be good. You have Jack Eichel, you have Sam Reinhart. No, I know that Reinhart's now banged up, but I mean, you got these young kids. You can't expect them to step in and win a Stanley Cup in their first year.
At this point, it's one of those things where we look back and we all said we want them to be better, and statistically, they have been better. I mean, standings wise, they're not better. But if you look if you take the top layer off, the standings off, and you look at the actual statistics of the team, they are a better hockey team. I mean, yeah, they've been bit by the injury bug. They're one of the worst. I think they're second worst right now in man games lost. I think to Edmonton. Edmonton is only worse. And
both Buffalo and Edmonton are running away with that race.
Yeah. So it's one thing where they've been bit by the injury bug. A team that doesn't have a lot of depth has been bit by the injury bug, so that hurts. I mean, last game the Sabres against the Red Wings, the Sabres damn near put out an AHL lineup, and it was obvious. I mean, they got destroyed. It was, I think, shots like 45-19. I mean, that's
and they only had 2 shots in the third period.
Yeah, I mean, the Sabres are they're being manhandled, but that's not their fault because I mean, all the talent that they have is hurt. I mean, you've got Zemgus Girgensons out, you've got Sam Reinhart out, you've got I can't even remember right now. My brain is garbage. But I want to bring up one more point. I want to bring up one more point with the draft and how this would help out for the Sabres, because we're talking about possible trades at the trade deadline. And I mean, I'm going to try and use this as like a sort of a segue here with Buffalo possibly dealing a guy like Jamie McGinn. Now, the questions come up, would he draw first round value? And I know we'll get in that in just a second, but let's say Buffalo did get first round value for Jamie McGinn. We get another first round pick. So that's 2 first rounders. And even if Tim Murray just decides to trade him for a second round pick, okay, so Buffalo would have 2 second rounders. They'd have their original second round pick, and then they'd have the one for Jamie McGinn. Now, Tim Murray, he could very well swing a deal that could find himself back in the first round and take it. And let's say that they draft Chychrun at 5. They draft Chychrun at 5. They take Chychrun. And then they say, and then Tim Murray says, okay, well, there's this one forward that's, in the later round of the draft that I really, really want before anybody else takes him. Tim Murray could very well trade back up into the first round and grab that forward, or he could do it vice versa. He drafts a forward with one of the first picks, and then he wants to draft a defenseman later on. So he could trade back up into the first round if he finds that the guy that he really wants isn't going to fall to him. That's a very good point. And that's very smart. That would be something that a guy like Tim Murray could pull off for sure. But I want to use your. I'm not going to try to comment too much on that. I know it's very vague of me to say, but I want to get moving on to why we're here today, talking about trades. It's the end of January. The hot stove in hockey is heating up. Now the first thing I want to talk about, and I want to ask you about, Brayton, is what does Buffalo need badly with this upcoming trade deadline, and who are some people that you can see the Buffalo Sabres targeting?
I don't know if they'd really be targeting really anybody. I think that with the depth that they have, I think Tim Murray would be reluctant to really target anybody specifically, and especially for what he gave up last year for Evander Kane and then Ryan O'Reilly also at the trade deadline, or not the trade deadline, at the NHL draft, but I don't really know if he's really going to be targeting anybody that's really out there. I mean, obviously there's like Jonathan Drouin there. I don't think Buffalo's in on Jonathan Drouin. Why would they want to be? Steven Stamkos, I mean, that's a pipe dream. If Stamkos comes to Buffalo, then what are you going to do with like Eichel? What are you going to do with, Ryan O'Reilly? Does Ryan O'Reilly go back to the wing? Just people just need to just relax with Steven Stamkos right there. But besides that, I mean, I'm just trying to think of any other names that would be floating around out there. And I don't know if there's really any names that would be of interest to me. I don't know what you're thinking, but
I was thinking more in the lines of like maybe the Sabres go out and try to swing a deal for a defenseman, maybe. But I've got a feeling that that's probably more of an off season or a draft day type of thing. Offensively, I could maybe see them making a small deal to clear up some room in Rochester, because I know it's been a rumor for a while because they have so many vets down there and there's not enough people to play.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, they've got guys that, like, when Phil Varone has to go back, I'm sure they'll try to make a deal to either deal Phil Varone or deal someone else. I mean, because Varone has to go through waivers, but he may. I don't think he'll get claimed. But it's a thing where they want to clear up Rochester to make it so the guys can play, and you don't have Coletta play for 3 games and then sit for 3 games, or Ellis play for 3 and then sit for 2, or Varone play a game and then sit for a game, because there's so many veterans down there. They've got to clear a spot. But as for actually helping the Sabres, I honestly think they may make minor deals, but there's really nothing out there. It doesn't seem like there's anything out there for the Sabres in their scope that they could pull off at this point in time.
Yeah, and I'm looking ahead. I'm looking ahead at what Buffalo may look like, towards the end of the season, where let's say that they, with Rochester, you were talking about Rochester with trying to trade some veterans. At the end of the year, I mean, you're going to have some kids that are college, that are out of college, they're done, or their junior seasons have wrapped up. And if they're under contract with the Sabres, they can come play for the Rochester Americans if they want to. I mean, I'm looking through the list here. I don't know if Hudson Fasching is exactly under contract right now. I don't believe he is, but I'll double check that. But if he were to be done with Minnesota, which I don't expect him to, I think Minnesota is going to go on a deep run these playoffs. In the college hockey playoffs. But let's just say that they're knocked out very early and there's still some season left where Rochester's maybe competing for a playoff spot. Maybe Tim Murray signs him to an entry-level contract and says, okay, go play, 5-6 games in Rochester, and we'll see how you do. Another guy that would be maybe of interest is Vaclav Karabachek. I'm looking at some of these other names here that could possibly make their way over. I'm not really seeing any other names right now. Brendan Gooley might be one. I mean, he's under contract, and if Prince Albert gets eliminated from the Western Hockey League playoffs, he might come and play. So you got to. I mean, I'm sure that you'd have to make a little bit of room for them, but that's just a thought.
Now I'm going to look because I figured that was going to kind of be a dud. I saved the best for last. Ooh. What Buffalo Sabres players, Brayton, can we expect to not necessarily be moved, but hear their names in trade discussions the next few weeks?
I got a list. Of guys.
I thought you did. I thought you would.
Yeah. Looking at generalfanager.com. I mean, of course, right at the top of the list is Jamie McGinn. Last year of his contract, he's got a $2.95 million cap hit. And with the numbers that he's putting up right now, he's on pace to break all of his career stats that he set with Colorado. What was it, 2-3 years ago, something like that. But Jamie McGinn's right in the top of the list.
I mean, with McGinn, I think we should just you throw a name out, we'll go back and forth, and then we'll move on to the next guy. How's that sound?
Okay, all right, sounds good. So what's your?
I think with McGinn, it's simple. For me, it's simple. If it's a first round draft pick, trade him.
Absolutely.
If it's anything less than a first round, think about it, but maybe take a hard pass. I mean, because you also have to see too. I think McGinn would want to be here, but you probably like if say for instance a second round pick comes up and you go, okay, well maybe we can deal him for a second, but you go see, hey, do you want to be here long term? Because like if you do, we won't trade you. But if you don't, we'll trade you. So it might be a thing where like, hey, if he doesn't want to be here, if he's not sure if he wants to test free agency, deal him and then try and bring him back like Matt Molson. But if you know he wants to be here, don't trade him. I mean, if it's not a first round pick, I mean, I wouldn't. I don't think it's.
Here's what I would do. If Jamie McGinn draws interest for a first round pick, you absolutely trade him. If he draws a second round pick this year, trade him. But if it's anything less than a second rounder this year or anything second round next year, first round next year, don't even bother. Because what's next year going to help you out with in the draft? Next year, you're expected to be a good team. You're expected to contend for a playoff spot. You're not going to be going into next year thinking, okay, well, we're going to draft again. We're going to draft high. You shouldn't look that way. You got Ryan O'Reilly, Evander Kane, Jack Eichel's going to be playing his second season. Sam Reinhart's going to be playing his second full season. And you've got young guys in, Hudson Fasching. He may be ready to play in the NHL next year. So I don't see, and I mean, who knows where Buffalo picks? Maybe they win a pick in the lottery and they pick third and take Patrick Laine. I mean, he's definitely going to be ready to play in the NHL next year. The top three of the draft are going to be ready to play in the NHL because they're playing professionally overseas right now. So, it's not, next year is not going to be about, okay, well, we're just trying to get better. Next year is actually going to be, okay, we're going to try and contend for a playoff spot. May not be a top playoff spot. It's going to be maybe a wild card spot or one of the 3-2 spots in the Atlantic, but they're going to be expected to contend and they're going to have pieces that will be able to contend. I would love to bring Jamie McGinn back. No doubt about it whatsoever. But if you're going to trade him, do not trade him for any future assets that are past the third round of this year or anything in 2017, 2018. It has to be a first rounder this year or a second rounder next year, in my opinion. And if it's not that, don't even bother.
Yeah, that's the one thing. That's the one fun thing about this rebuild that we've all been a part of. We've all been watching firsthand, is that it's getting to the point where they're going to start pulling the trigger on things now. I mean, we kind of saw it with O'Reilly and Kane, but I really think that the moves you see at the deadline, the moves you see at the draft and in free agency will really point to, hey, look at next year, we're going to try to go for a playoff spot. And then it's going to actually work the right way. It's not going to be, hey, we're going to throw a lot of money at our problems and we're going to throw a lot of money in our problems and hope it makes us better. It's going to be a thing where they play next year and they try to get better. And they may make the playoffs, but they may not go far. But you'll know, okay, we made the playoffs, but we need a depth defenseman. We need a good depth defenseman, or we need a good third-line winger, or we need a tough fourth liner, or something like that. And then then you go out and get it. And then you come back the next year and say, look, we're better now. And then that's how you do it. It's not like you go out and throw millions of dollars at a problem and say, look, you're going to solve our problem. Like what they did with Ville Laino and Christian Ehrhoff. That's not how you win championships. This is the way that they're doing it now, how you win championships. It takes time, unfortunately, but the moves, like I said, not to get too far off topic, the moves that we see coming up are going to be moves that are going to benefit the team now. So it's going to be, like you said, don't go out and get future assets. Go out and get stuff that helps the team now, that helps the team next season in their quest for the playoffs, because we've gone through the suffering. This is the one season to kind of recalibrate, and then next year is supposed to be the year where they start to get better. I mean, because look, they've gotten better this year, but it's supposed to be next year where they get better and are ready to contend for a playoff spot. That's what we're looking for coming up. But like I said, I don't want to get too far off topic because we can go on that for days. We've done that before, Brayton, where we talk about just like the tank and the rebuild for like 2 hours, and then when we're done, we don't even know what just happened, but something happened. But I want to move over to the defense, because I think I have a feeling that the Buffalo Sabres defense can and will look a lot different following the deadline. Now we've heard a lot every year. I mean, it's no different. It's like a rite of passage every hockey season. Teams are absolutely in love with veteran defensemen or guys who can play, or veteran who can provide good, strong, solid depth for the playoffs. Now, the Buffalo Sabres have two guys right now. Two guys that I strongly believe can and will be dealt at the deadline. First off, no surprise, Josh Georges. He was brought up in talks with Los Angeles. Los Angeles was looking for a veteran defenseman, a solid defender. I mean, Georges is okay. I'm sure in a limited role in Los Angeles, he could be better, and there's no doubt about that. Because even we've seen it in Buffalo, when his role has been diminished, he's been a better hockey player. Mm-hmm. The only thing about Josh Georges, though, is length or term on his deal still. So it's not a 1 year, dump it free agency, whatever. So I think Georges can be had if the price is right. The deal return may not be as great, but it still may be a thing. This may be a deal where you get future assets and you're fine with it. It may not be a thing that helps you now, but I feel like getting rid of Josh Georges is probably not a bad idea at this point, because you've got, Jake McCabe is growing. Jake McCabe is still young. Jake McCabe is playing his first full NHL season, but he's expected to make that jump. Same with Mark Pysyk. Mark Pysyk is making the team better. He's leaps and bounds better than he was. He's developing super quick. Mm-hmm. But when you're giving those minutes to a guy like Josh Georges, is it helping or is it hurting? That's the type of thing I'm looking at. So I think a guy like Josh Georges can be had. And I want to get your thoughts on Josh Georges before I move on to the second name, because you may be surprised. I don't think you will, but you may be surprised at who I have to say. So please, how do you feel about Josh Georges potentially being dealt, and what do you think the odds are that it happens?
I wouldn't be opposed to moving Josh Georges, but we know, and you said it, he's not a top. Needs to be. He needs to be in like a 3 to 6 range in order to be really successful. He's played really well with Ristolainen this year, but I'm actually really ready to see what Bogosian and Ristolainen can do. I want to keep those guys together for quite a bit now, just to see how they're going to play together, what Bogosian can do as a top pairing defenseman with a guy like Ristolainen. Yeah, they're both right-handed shots, but you know what? If Bogosian's going to be a factor on this team, which, his contract goes quite a ways, so he probably will be a factor on this team. I want to see him play a top pair role. And then if the Sabres draft a defenseman or trade for a defenseman, whatever they decide to do, and then we'll see what happens. But right now, you got to see Zach Bogosian play with Ristolainen more, and they've been playing pretty well. And with Georges, the term, he's got 2 more years after this year, $3.9 million. He's got a no trade clause. It'll be a little difficult to try and trade him, but I could see him getting moved more as an end of the season deal and more than a trade deadline deal. Sort of like when he was traded from Montreal to Buffalo, he was traded right on the free agency day.
I remember what I was going to say. And the thing about Zach Bogosian too is that, and not to get too far off topic here, but Bogosian has, it looks like Bogosian's getting back into the groove of things. Before the Coyotes mess where they had the gigantic fight, we saw that. We obviously saw it looks like he's getting more comfortable. His play has improved. He's become a better hockey player. It looks like I said, he's got back into the groove of things, and now we find him paired with Ristolainen. That is going to be huge for the Sabres, like you said. We need to see that for the next, X amount of games for the rest of the season, to see if that'll work out. To see how, that's one of those things that, like we said before, this season is kind of a step forward, but you need to figure out what you have, which is like I said, I've said it all season. The Sabres have a decent top 6. They have to figure out the bottom 6. They have a decent top 3 to top 4 defensemen. They need to figure out the bottom 3 or bottom 2. And make that better. You need to find out if you have a decent backup goaltender in Chad Johnson. You need to find out if you have a decent number 1 in Robin Lehner. Stuff like that. That's what this season's for. It sucks because it's like they're playing with our emotions. They're toying with our emotions, saying, "Hey, look, we might not be good, but we're figuring it out." And that's hard for fans to watch, and it makes a lot of people mad. But what were you going to expect? Like you said before, Brayton, you don't come out of losing the 2 worst hockey teams potentially ever, or one of the two of the worst hockey seasons in franchise history, maybe 2 of the worst hockey seasons we've seen in a long time, if ever. And you can't expect to just be great. So again, it's a process. We're watching it happen before our eyes, all that stuff. But I really think, like I said, Josh Georges was kind of like a Gianta, where he was supposed to bridge the gap from crap to good. And I think it seems to me like Georges' time has kind of run out in Buffalo. But I mean, he could certainly stick around, and it would make more sense if he stuck around and they dealt him in the offseason because he's only got 1 year left on his deal. I mean, if Georges doesn't get dealt this year, I think next deadline for sure, because I mean it's Josh Georges, he's a veteran defenseman, all that stuff, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
He fits all the categories that you would want.
For sure.
But,
I don't think he's going to live to see the end of the contract here in Buffalo.
No.
I don't think he's going to get traded this deadline. Again, like I said, maybe at the end of this year, maybe at the end of next year. But I definitely think that Josh Georges, I don't think his time has necessarily come to an end here. I just think that he probably will not see the end of his contract here.
That's fair. I'll jump on that bandwagon. That seems very fair. Now, the last name that I have, I'm not sure about you, Brayton, but the last name that I have is someone that I've hopped on this bandwagon recently, not because I don't like the hockey player. I don't have a problem with the hockey player. But I am thinking strongly, I feel strongly about this one, Brayton, that the Buffalo Sabres will trade Mike Weber to a contender at the trade deadline.
I can see a team who's lacking some defensive depth, whether it's because of injuries or, they think they're a contender, but they just don't have that depth. But the way Mike Weber's played this year, I could absolutely see the Sabres trying to trade him or, gaining interest in him.
It won't be a lot for Mike Weber.
No, it'll probably be a 4th, 5th round pick for Mike Weber.
But
and that's all I do for him.
Yeah, but the big but here is that Dan Bilesma has used Mike Weber fantastically this season. I don't even know if I'm making shit up over here, making words. I shouldn't swear on the podcast. It's bad for business. Bilesma has used Mike Weber almost perfectly this season. His numbers are his fancy stats are some of the best on the team, and that's drawing from what I gather on the interwebs, on the Twitter bots. That's gaining some interest from other teams because you say, okay, if Buffalo used this guy this way and they protected him, maybe we can do the same thing and get the same type of play, and that'll benefit us and make us a better hockey team. So you might see, I like I said, I think that Weber gets dealt, especially too because he's a pending UFA. Again, that's the thing where, I don't want to see Mike Weber back, but you could deal Mike Weber and then in the offseason say, hey, Mike Weber, do you want to come back? And he probably would. But I don't think Mike Weber is long for this franchise. But no. I think that you can deal him, you get something for him, and you turn a guy last year who was atrocious into a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick. I mean, you're turning him into something of value. You take a shot in a player in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round, and maybe he turns into something.
I mean, you look at a guy like Brian Flynn. Not a lot of people thought Brian Flynn was going to get traded last year, and then all of a sudden, just kind of like popped out of nowhere. Oh, Brian Flynn's been traded to Montreal, and Tim Murray, like a week before, I think, said something to the nature of, I've gotten calls about some people that kind of surprised me, and we all thought, oh, is it Cody Hodgson? No, it was Brian Flynn, and I think that Mike Weber would be one of those surprising calls because. Again, you kind of look towards a team that would have some issues with defense, whether it's depth or injuries. And then, maybe Mike Weber would get a call about it. And, they say, okay, well, for Mike Weber, how about a 5th round pick? And I think Tim Murray would take a 5th round pick and he wouldn't care what year it was. He could take it in 2018 and he'd probably take it.
Yeah, I think, and I'm not too sure how the Sabres would turn around and have a guy that they could bring up to play, but maybe you have like I don't know. I don't know if Chad Ruedel is an NHL defenseman, but you could bring a guy like Ruedel up and play a limited role, a limited 6th role, or Koliakovo could play that role, or Like I keep saying, I think Koliakovo is that guy, that fringe guy. So if they were to deal Mike Weber, I don't think Koliakovo would play a ton. He might play more, but I think you would deal Weber you would kind of deal from a point of strength and say, look, we want to get a look at Chad Ruedel. We want to get a look at Matt Donovan. We want to get a look at a guy like that. So we're going to deal Mike Weber and we're going to take a shot on this guy and see what we have. I mean, that's also a very big possibility. But besides Georges, besides McGinn, besides Weber, unless it's like a shocker deal, I don't see any other Sabres being dealt.
Yeah, no, I mean the only other one would be Chad Johnson. And we've heard it before. Like if someone calls Tim Murray asking about Chad Johnson, I think Chad Johnson is definitely good as gone. And then that means Linus Allmark will probably come up for the rest of the season, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. He's getting the time in Rochester. I mean, Allmark, I think he had a 43 save win over Grand Rapids on Friday night. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, it was something absurd like that.
Yeah, in a 5-3 win, but still he made 43 saves in the win, which is very impressive. And then Nathan Lewin had a 42 save shutout last night against Grand Rapids. But the only other name that kind of intrigues me, I think that maybe David Legwan would be a tradable asset. I mean, if he wants to win with Stanley Cup in his last year, he's 35 years old. Maybe he's going to retire after this year, and he figures, well, I want to win a Stanley Cup. And then if Tim Murray decides to trade him to a contender, maybe he will. The one name that I'm kind of intrigued about, and I want your take on this, Johan Larsson. Do the Sabres trade him?
I mean, again, it's one of those things where it could be. It could be a thing, but I'm not sure where he would go because I'm not even really sure what he is at this point of his NHL career. I mean, he's I think at this point in this system, he's a fringe NHLer. Like, I mean, he's shown the ability some games that he can play and that he can really hang here in the National Hockey League. And then there's other games where you're like, Johan Larsson played tonight? I was not aware.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I'm not too sure if he even is a National Hockey Leaguer. I mean, like a full-time guy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he gets dealt somewhere and they go, oh, hey, we know how to use you. We'll put you in the system very well. Like, you're going to fit this system great. Maybe that's what happens. I don't know. But, I mean, yeah. I don't know if specifically he'll get dealt, but it's a possibility. I mean, anything, like you said, Brayton, anything's a possibility. That's why we like to hang out at the arena on deadline day, because you go in with a thought process of, like last year, Tim Murray's not going to do much. There's not much to do. And then he comes back with some stuff, and you're like, oh, okay. Or like, just any other time we talk about Tim Murray and we go, there's not really much he can do. And then he goes out and gets Ryan O'Reilly or Evander Kane or the trade for Nick Delorier and Hudson Fasching, like stuff like that you don't expect. But I mean, that's why Tim Murray is Tim Murray. I mean,
just an update here from Sabres practice. Our good buddy Joe Yurden, the noted jerk, tweeted out the lines today. McGinn moves up to the top line with Kane and O'Reilly. Then Molson's on a line with Eichel and Zemgus Girgensons. So it seems like Girgensons is going to be possibly ready to play tomorrow.
You have to think that he will be back if he's skating lines.
Yeah. Nick Delorier was skating in red, and Josh Georges was also back practicing today. So
now I wish they would do this because it would be a lot of fun. But Veroni, O'Reilly, and Schaller on the fourth line with Legwan. But I think I would assume that Schaller and O'Reilly, one of them is skating extra. Delorier is skating, but he's in the red. He's in non-contact jersey still. You know what? I don't know. And here's just my continued not understanding, but maybe you can help me figure this out. I don't understand Marcus Foligno, and I don't know if he fits on this team anymore. Because,
I don't know if he does either.
Because he doesn't score goals. He's physical, but he can't be super physical. And I'm not being a booty about this. Like he gets hurt a lot. If he gets overly physical, he will hurt himself. He has done it multiple times. Like anytime Foligno gets in a fight, you're like, okay, is he gonna break his hands? Because he usually does. I don't know if anybody. I mean, I'm assuming somebody would be interested in Foligno because he's still a young player with a lot of potential. But I don't ever know if that potential is going to turn into actual talent.
Right.
I don't know if it's him being misused or him just not fitting, the square peg in a round hole. But I wonder if at some point in time maybe Marcus Foligno gets some trade consideration, because I mean maybe his role is a fourth liner on this team. Maybe that's the goal. But if that's the case, like, stop trying to blow smoke. And I mean, because a lot of people have said Foligno belongs in the top 6, and there have been times where I believe that. There have been times where I believe Foligno could be a solid top 6 forward. But the rest of the time, I'm like, where is Marcus Foligno? And he made a career off of that hot stretch he had when he came up from Rochester.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you look at a guy like his brother, Nick. When he was in Ottawa, he had some time playing on the top 6. And then after that, he was just kind of, didn't really do much. He wasn't scoring as much. He was not playing as physical. Then he gets traded to Columbus and then just reignites his game and then gets a huge contract extension. And now he's the captain and he can't stay healthy. I know he just got reactivated off injured reserve and he's back in the lineup. But, I mean, maybe it would be a good thing to move on from Marcus Foligno. And I know that a lot of people, especially Lindy Ruff's tie, would not be happy with us saying that.
Hopefully they're listening. I hope they listen. I hope Lindy Ruff's tie is listening, but just tune out before that part, please. I'm of the thought process that maybe Foligno is a guy that you can deal at the draft, in a package for a defenseman or another forward.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is no, I totally agree. You can package a guy like Foligno in a defense trade or however you want to do it. But, I mean, he is a restricted free agent this year. So who knows what's going to happen with him.
I just hope something – I just want to see the one thing, and we'll wrap this up right after this. The one thing that I want to see the Sabres improve, and maybe you can give me – we'll do this. We'll have a little adorable kindergarten session right here. One thing you want to see the Sabres improve at the deadline, I would have to say it's the depth of the offense because we've seen it time and time again. Sabres get hurt, Sabres go down, they've got no one to fill the spot. I mean, Cal O'Reilly's not nobody, Tim Schaller's not a nobody, but Phil Varoni's not a nobody. But it's not them that's the problem. It's the fact that you take Jamie McGinn off the second line and you put Jamie McGinn on the first line. So now you have 3/4 of your offensive talent on one line, or you have to put Jack Eichel with Brian Giunta and Johan Larsson or Marcus Foligno because there's no one else to play him with. Because again, you have all your talent on one line. So,
yeah, just remember, I mean, Tyler Ennis is injured, and who knows when he's going to be back. I mean,
Ennis may be a guy that gets traded too in the offseason because he's hurt right now. But Ennis, Ennis is a guy that's been getting a lot of sniffs for teams that are looking to get better now. And I wouldn't be against it. I mean, if you traded a Tyler Ennis to get a solid defenseman, I'd be down for it. If you trade,
I could see a trade something happening where, like what Pittsburgh did. Pittsburgh, they needed speed. And they went out and traded David Perron for Carl Hagelin because Carl Hagelin's a really fast guy. And the Rangers traded Carl Hagelin to Anaheim, and that hasn't worked out because Anaheim's not a fast team. They're more of a big, sturdy team that's going to play physical, and they're going to just snub people out. And, they do have some speed, but Hagelin's not a really physical guy. He's more of a very he's a skater. He's fast. He's offensive. He's not a guy that's going to throw the body around. So, I mean, maybe a team like a Pittsburgh that needs speed, needs something to fit that mold will look to get a guy like Tyler Ennis who can skate, who's got the speed, who's got the skill. Maybe a trade something like that.
Now, I know we have some friends who are big Tyler Ennis fans, and I apologize for saying that, but it does. I think Ennis is another guy. He's a good hockey player. Don't get me wrong. But I think he could probably use a change of scenery, and the Sabres could probably use a change of scenery because they can turn him into something. I'm not saying Ennis is bad for if Ennis sticks with the Sabres, it's not going to make him worse. It's going to make the team, they're going to be a better team with him. But I feel like at this point in time, you have currency to make your franchise better. And I feel like Tyler Ennis may not be expendable, but he's a guy that you can take calls on. And if the right guy comes across the board, you can pull the trigger and not feel bad about it.
Paul Hamilton just tweeted out, my good buddy at WGR. He said that Cal O'Reilly is at practice, but he's not taking any line shifts. So I'm wondering if that means that maybe later today or tomorrow, O'Reilly gets sent back to Rochester.
That's probably correct. Yeah, that'll make sense.
That would be my thought, because if Girgensons is ready to play, then Cal O'Reilly was the most recent call up.
You'll have Veroni, you'll have Phil Veroni and Tim Schaller and David Legwand on the fourth line, which is okay. Now, Brayton, my one thing is depth. What is your one thing you want to see the Sabres address at the trade deadline?
Well, I think you're pretty right there. I think that if there's a player that they can add that would be of help to the top six or even just bottom six, that would be a big help for them. Because when you get a guy that goes down like a Tyler Ennis or a Zemgus Girgensons, you got to call up a guy like Tim Schaller or Cal O'Reilly. And Cal O'Reilly, I mean, he's had some success in the NHL. It's been a long road back for him, but it's good to see him back in the NHL. I just want to see better players being called up besides, Phil Veroni, because Veroni can play decent at times. He's just very inconsistent with his play. I mean, when he was first called up and he scored that goal against Washington, I was like, that's the Phil Veroni I want to see every single night in Buffalo, in Rochester. If he did that, he'd be an NHL player. And then the next game he plays, he just was a nobody. It was a no-show. He just was nowhere on the ice. And that's just like, yep, that's typical Phil Veroni for you there.
Yeah, like I said, we just need to see better depth on from the Sabres, and get better. I mean, because we want to enjoy hockey, but we know the Sabres aren't good. I mean, it's like it's tough to see like Robin Leonard play his ass off the past three starts he's had with the Sabres, or the past couple games or whatever it's been. I don't even remember. And watch him just completely bust his ass and not get rewarded because the Sabres are really bad offensively. Because he should have won a couple of those games at least, but Tim Murray's not stupid. We know that he'll see the problems, he'll address the problems, he'll make the team better. I know the guys in Rochester, the talents in the Baptistes and Bailey, they're not ready for the NHL yet, but maybe next year they'll be ready, and that'll help a little. I mean, they may not be like super NHL ready, but they may come to camp and show some promise, which will be good. They may be guys that can come up next year as that depth. But I don't think you can really rely on Rochester. You have to rely on making smart trades and smart draft choices. And that starts, obviously, like I said, with the deadline and then free agency and stuff like that. So it could be very busy coming up, but it could also be very dead. I don't think there's going to be a middle ground there. I either think it's going to be super busy or super quiet. I'm hoping super busy because I like to do work and I like hockey trades.
The thing is I think that this year's trade deadline won't be busy with any big names. It'll just be guys like Jamie McGinn. It'll be some other guys. Probably Jamie McGinn might be indeed probably the biggest name that is available on the trade market. I mean, he's probably one of the top 5 names that are going to be, on the TSN's top 30 rankings or whatever of the players available at the trade deadline. But we're not going to see Steven Stamkos get dealt. I don't think so, because especially if it's like a Canadian team, their dollar is not doing so well right now, and the financial stuff that's going on in the NHL, that's definitely going to hurt the trade deadline this year. But I mean, I almost like more of the trades that happen at the draft, like a Ryan O'Reilly trade. Where you see some surprising names, or not some surprising names, because I mean, we kind of figured that Ryan O'Reilly was on the market, but you see names out there, and then you see the trades develop, and then when it happens, it's usually a big deal, and not just like Steven Stamkos got traded at the trade deadline for 2 first-round picks, and just kind of like something that was like a panic move, or it's just like, okay, well, we got to get this guy now. But yeah, no, I don't expect any big names to be dealt this year. I expect the trade deadline to be pretty quiet. You'll see. I think there'll probably be about a dozen to 15 trades, but they're going to be very, very minimal to moderate.
Well, hey, either way, I'll be live at the First Niagara Center on deadline day. Brayton may be there. We're going to try to catch up with some friends, have some fun, enjoy ourselves on the tweet bots and all that stuff. I'm not sure if a podcast will happen. Maybe we can get a podcast working. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. I should bring my microphone though. I have to remember.
I know that Tom tweeted out Mega Podcast or Mega Cat.
I saw that. Yeah. Soon, Mega Cat coming soon. Mega Cat soon. But for now, this is just a minor cat because Brayton has to go do some fun stuff here shortly. He's leaving in about a half hour. You're leaving?
Yeah, probably a little sooner. I'm probably going to get ready and just go right away.
You get to go. Brayton will be after. You'll probably hear this afterwards, but Brayton will be doing play-by-play for the NWHL's All-Star Game, which is a pretty cool gig for a little hockey guy.
Yeah. No,
I don't know what I was gonna say there, but I just threw something together.
Yeah, no, it's sort of surprising to me because I kind of got the last minute notice late last night. So I went scrambling late last night. I was in bed. I got a text saying that I was going to do it. And I was like, okay, well then I went up and, kind of put something together for about 2 hours, went back to bed, got up this morning, put some more stuff together. And I think I'm just about as ready as I can be.
Well, best of luck to you, sir.
Well, thank you, sir.
Where can we hear you do the play-by-play?
Well, you can go to, I believe you go to nwhl.co. When you get to the homepage, there's going to be a link at the top. It's labeled in blue, and it's called Streaming. You can click there, and it's their Cross-Ice Pass. And it's free streaming. It's on YouTube. So you can also you can go to either view archived games, and then there'll be something there. Or else you can go to YouTube and just search up probably NWHL, and I'm sure they'll have a stream there for the All-Star Game later today.
Sounds good, man. We'll check it out.
It starts at 2:00. The skills competition starts first, and then after that, they'll do a 4-on-4 tournament between Team Falzer and Team Knight. And I don't know how everything's really going to work, but it should be fun. There's a good crop of Buffalo Buttes players playing, and there's a majority of them are Boston Pride players, but still, it's going to be fun. I hope.
I wish you the best of luck. Enjoy yourself. Don't have too much fun.
Well, thank you.
Real quick story. I met Hillary Knight once at Fenway Park, and I got to hold her Olympic medal, which was pretty dope.
That's cool.
Yeah, because I stayed throughout the first pitch. It's when they won the silver medal years ago. It's like 2009, I think it was when I was there. It was like April 2009. Throughout the first pitch, and I also met Brianne McLaughlin, I believe. I met her outside on Yawkey Way. She was just chilling, and we were like, "Hey, you're famous. Let's get a picture." But yeah, we saw Hillary Knight, and she was really cool. And you want to hold the medal, and the silver medal is pretty damn heavy.
Yeah.
I'll send you when I find the picture. I'll send you the picture. It's pretty cool.
Word sounds good.
But besides that, I am Ryan Wolf at Wolf BLTD. Brayton is at BJ Wilson WGR. Did I say Wolf BLTD? That's my Twitter. Wolf BLTD.
Wolf BLTD and BLTD Sports at BLTD Sports.
And BLTDsports.com. Check out Brayton's winter top 30 rankings. Well, I'm doing the redraft soon. I was going to do it today. I might try to still do it today. It shouldn't be very hard. But I'll work on my portion of the redraft. We'll do that podcast probably next week sometime or the week after.
Sounds good. 2004 redraft.
We'll do it soon. We'll do the redraft soon. We'll talk more hockey soon. We'll do a Mega Cat soon. Everything coming soon. Stay tuned to BLTDsports.com. Thank you again, Brayton, for joining me. Thank you again, everybody, for listening and tuning in. We will talk to you all sometime in the very near future. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody.